Good afternoon, church. How you doing? This is Pastor Jose, and this is Open Table. We welcome you to Open Table, where we gather together, and we kind of imagine this to be a coffee table where you and us can, with you and me and Tracy and everybody else who's here, we can share with you, talk with you, and be able to go a little bit deeper in what we learned in our sermon this past Sunday. So we've been working in our series, A Community of Hope and Forgiveness, based on the third question of the baptismal vows that we do in the United Methodist Church now for many, many, many years. And today we're going to be focusing specifically on the very last sentence, which means a church that Christ established to be open to all nations, races, and ages. So, and to everybody, to everyone. So we're going to be talking about what does it mean, a church that is open, right? We talked about open last week, but what does it mean that is open to all, to every single person? So again, I'm not here by myself. I'm glad to be able to share this table once again with my friend Tracy. You want to say hi?
Welcome. Yes, hello. I'm glad to be here today.
And also with us, like always, is Franco is behind the cameras and behind the system to be able to make sure that we look good, sound good, and get through this okay. So we're going to be focusing specifically on chapter 15 of Luke, and we're going to be looking at the whole chapter. We're probably not going to be able, because it's only a half hour, we're probably not going to be able to read the whole thing. But we really encourage you at home that you take the time to read it all. But we're going to be discussing it as a whole. The tendency for many of us is to look at it individually, as all parts of it are separately. But we're going to really focus in looking at it as a whole. But before we start, I definitely want to jump in and asking to kind of get us started. What do you think the word all means within the context of this statement that is part of our baptismal vows?
As it relates to the United Methodist Church, we all means everyone, every race, every creed, every color, every nationality. Open hearts, open doors, open minds was something we used years ago, and that really did mean all. And maybe that concept came 20 years before we were ready socially. But I still love that. I still love that open hearts, open minds, open doors. And I think that is what all means to our church.
Yeah, I think we usually, and I try to think, actually you and me have talked about it before, where, I grew up in a specific place with a specific view of the church, and a specific perspective and a specific experience of what the church is, and I mean, you have shared with me your experience into how you were growing up in church, and I think the tendency for many of us is to think, well, whatever my experience is, this is the default version of the church.
Right.
And if anybody can come, often implies or means everybody can come to my version of the church.
Right.
But a church that is open to all, then it looks, there's some challenges there, right? There's some things that you gotta work to. There's some things that you really have to think of. And ultimately, I think too, it means that we gotta move from the specifics of what it means to be the church to the concepts that can be moved and changed from one place to another within the context of what it means to be the church that we all can fight for, that we all can get behind, that we all can able to understand in the concept of what it means to be the church. But I mean, ultimately, the church is open to everyone, and obviously, it's a concept that every single one of us struggle in one way or another, right? Every single one of us have an area that we struggle when it comes to that. So
I think it's important. If you're a minister out there, if you're a pastor, if you're a Sunday school teacher, and you're listening to this podcast or this video, prepare your congregation to be open. Prepare them to be welcoming. Prepare them to see community and to see the face of God in every person. Please welcome everyone. I don't say don't do like us, but don't come with that idealism that everybody, by default, it's always the way we grew up, or always the way we've done it. They always said in church, the 7 deadliest words is, we've never done it that way before.
Yes.
So we can't go back to yesterday, but tomorrow and today, we absolutely have a chance to become that church that you're talking about.
So what do you think is some of the things that people have to do in order to be prepared?
First of all, they have to seek God in their own heart. We have to do a self-examination of our own prejudices and our own ideas of what we think church looks like. And we just have to be humble and open. Maybe we need to do research. Maybe we need to visit other churches that have already, trod that path. They know what it's like. So I feel like it's important to open our minds up, but open our research up, but examine our hearts, examine our souls, and pray for leadership and guidance. Be ready, be culturally ready, be sensitive. Don't, just leave everything at the door. I have a real good friend in the worship program, and I love her and I trust her wisdom on things. And she says, group punishment is never a good thing. And so when you open your doors and you try to prepare your church and your congregation for the church of tomorrow, and you try to tell them we're going to be an open church and we're going to have open doors, open hearts, and open minds, which we've tried for 20 years to do, and you tell people you must leave your prejudices, your racism, your pain, whatever it is that you have, leave it at the door. Don't bring it in the worship center. Come in and just bring the armor of God, bring love. It looks like group punishment. It looks like we're telling our church, who's been faithful for decades, you must change. You must leave that at the door. It's not acceptable. And she reminded me that's group punishment. And so she said, in preparing yourself for the church of today and the church of tomorrow, and preparing people to take hold of the reins, remember, let those people, even with those flaws, come in and deal with them one-on-one, because the only place they're going to heal and learn to get over those problems and those hindrances, you might call them, is to be in the house of God. So we can be very limiting when we put up our barriers and say, we're not accepting any of this, any of these barriers in the church. Everyone's welcome. But it's hard for people. And for people to get to that point, they really need to be in church. And then that's our struggle in ministry, is when someone is dealing with, issues in accepting others that are not like them or like they grew up. We have to help them across that barrier. So that's our challenge.
Yeah, I think, especially in the context of church, like being able to be in an interaction, to be able to see like people beyond whatever stereotype you have created or whatever group you looked at, and be able to look at them as humans and as bearers of the image of God, and be able to see them as, this person, might look different than me, talk different than me, walk different than me, but there's still a humanity that I can connect with, and a value to that humanity that I can connect with. And I think that's critical, but you don't get to see that if you simply leave that group within the context of something that is isolated and I don't talk to, I don't interact. I think the more, or at least in my experience, the more people are willing to interact and be in an environment where they interact for each other. Even for us in our church council meeting, one of the things that we introduce in a way, but we want to continue, and I think it's been key in every movement that the church has taken into thinking about what it means to be a church as a whole, despite all the services and all the perspective, is praying for each other. Right? Like, I think there's a power to praying for each other, praying for somebody who looks different, talks different, walks different. When you're willing to pray for them, it's very hard not to see somebody that's human when you're coming to God with their needs. And even when we hear, one of the things I get to do every week is ask people about prayer requests, right? When you hear people's prayer requests and you hear the trends, the common trends in humanity and sufferings and happiness and pains, then I think it facilitates for people to be able to see themselves at a different level, right? And I think that's a great segue towards these verses, because I think at the very heart of what Jesus is trying to do is to be able to tell them there is value. When you don't see any value, there is value that I see. So let me look at Act chapter 15, verses 1 and 2. And I want to read 1 and 2 first, and we'll go from there. But verses 1 and 2 says this: Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus, but the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, and I'm going to get this wrong, moderate? No, it's not moderate. Am I reading it correctly? M-U-T-U. Here, let me put it big here.
Muttered.
Mutter. I got it right?
Like uttered, but muttered.
Like utter, but okay.
Yes.
So the teachers of the law mutter. I'm sorry, Tracy's looking at me like, what are you talking
Go
about?
ahead.
Sorry, all right. Mutter, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. So there's one group looking at Jesus just along the lines of what we were talking about, right? Like, for me to be able to see the humanity in somebody else, I got to be able to interact with them, talk with them, hear them out, hear their concerns, their joys, and get to see them beyond the stereotype into who they are as people. Well, clearly Jesus was doing all the time, right? Like eating with them, welcoming them, spending time with them. And the tax collectors and the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, the one accusation that it has against Jesus is like he welcomes them and he eats with them. Right? So this whole answer that we're going to hear, I mean, we literally going to have 29 verses that are going to answering to that one sentence: this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. So my first question would be, why do you think that Jesus took 20? I might be wrong, but I think this is the longest single speech from Jesus in the whole book of Acts. If it's not the longest, it has to be really close to the longest.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure it's the longest speech. I'm going to have to search it, but I'm pretty sure it's the longest speech that Jesus gives in the book of Acts. I mean, the book of Luke. Why spend 29 verses to answer to that sentence? Why do you think Jesus has such a big reaction to that statement?
I think it's one of those concepts that might go against human nature, and he just knew they had not gotten it. But it's so important to get it and stress it and stress it and stress it again.
Yes.
Sometimes you've told me that it takes many contacts
Yes,
for someone
7.
to remember 7 contacts.
To become aware of it.
To become
Not
aware of
even
it. So maybe Jesus just knew, human nature goes against some of his teaching or against some of his, ideals and principles. And he just needed to just tell them how important it was just one more time and stress it and stress it. And when you get it, you can move on.
You know what, the one thing that really comes to mind for me is like, which I'm pretty sure as a choir director or as somebody who leads groups, and you probably have been there before at one point in time. And of course, probably, hopefully, more with younger people. But I mean, I know it happens in all contexts. But so, the image that comes to mind is like you're directing. Let's say you're directing a group of teenagers, right? And you're teaching them how to sing, and you're working with them, and you're like, all right, you're gonna sing this way, you're gonna do it this way, you're gonna work this way, and all of a sudden, one of them jumps and says, well, Tracy, I don't know, your singing is ugly or something, or makes fun or disrespects one of the other ones, one of the other students that you may be teaching. The image I get of Jesus is going like, hold on. We're going to respect each other here. We're going to love each other. We're going to, he goes into a soliloquy or like a whole speech about this is important. Now, we can work with you trying to sing like a alto when you're a soprano. We can work with you being out of tune. We can work with you being out of time. You can go like, all right, and or whatever the case is. You can work with them in it. We can repeat it as many times, but we're not going to play around with this disrespect. That's not going to happen here. And so the idea that comes to mind in Jesus going into this long speech is just really accentuating that this we cannot miss. Like we work in other things, we'll miss some other things, but this part you cannot miss. You cannot possibly not understand what I'm trying to tell you in this. This is that important, right? And whenever it repeats it 3 times, right, it just really conveys the idea that this is absolutely critical to it. I mean, what do you think that in this particular case, what do you think the tax collectors and, what do you think the Pharisees and the teachers of the law felt has so much trouble with the sinners and the tax collectors being apart, being welcome, and having Jesus eating with them?
I think that they expected perfection. They expected separation. They expected Jesus to live an exemplary life and be separate from the sinners, come out from the world, come out from among them. But Jesus always said, go into the highways and hedges and compel them to come in. And so he was not only the teacher, he was the doer. And I don't think they expected him to be the doer. I think they expected someone less. If he's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, how could he do that? How could he? Because there's always a risk. If you go hang out with the sinners, what are the chances you'll partake in sin? If you go hang out with the homeless, what are the chances are you're going to, maybe just put less value in your home? So maybe they thought it would compromise his ministry because maybe in their own hearts they had compromised their love for their fellow man. Maybe they felt they were, leaders and, they were politicians. And they just didn't feel that they could relate. And they couldn't imagine Jesus being their leader spiritually, yet very common and very down to earth with the poor.
I think definitely that is clearly a part of the dynamic. That, and I think another aspect of that is fear. I think that the tax collectors, the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, there was a sense of exclusivity. We're the ones who control and have control over who gets to know about these things or not, and we're the wise one, and people had to come to us in order to get this. And it's almost like that's our gig, right? Like that's what we do. We control this part, like, and you're just giving it to everybody, right? Like you're giving all these nudges and things to everybody. Like, no, they should be coming to us to get this information. And they felt deeply intimidated as to where their role was going to be in society if then it was just open to anybody. And specifically, I mean, they really, the reality is, and the sad reality in this case, in a way, is that they didn't, as strong as Jesus was and as clear as Jesus is to these verses, they didn't hear him, and furthermore, they killed him, right? Like the reaction to this was, wow, we hear you. We really need to kill this guy. I mean, that's literally what he was so clear and so specific in this need of, no, we have to welcome everybody and everybody has value, that the answer was, we're not going to put up with that, and we're going to facilitate for you to die. I mean, that's really is, and it's only through the victory and resurrection that Jesus is able to have victory over it, and I'm extremely grateful as we are here. Now, very important, I mean, verse 3, I really like it. It says, then Jesus told them this parable, right? It's not Jesus told them these 3 parables, right? But Jesus told them this parable. And in it, I'm going to read the first one only, and then there's parallels to the second one and parallels to the third one, but just so that we have a point of reference. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep, loses one of them. Doesn't he have the 99 in the open? Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the one after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. And then he calls his friends and neighbors together and say, rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep. I tell you that the same way that there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. So we hear that we hear elements of this reality 3 times in it. So let me just start with this, right? The first one is the main character of this reality is the shepherd, right? Not the sheep. Nobody will go to the sheep and say, you're the main character. The main character is the shepherd. The main character of the second one is the woman who loses the coin. And the main character in the third one, despite the fact that, actually we call it the parable of the lost sheep. Well, it's really the parable of the shepherd who finds the lost sheep, the parable of the lost coin, the parable of the woman who finds the lost coin, and the parable of the prodigal son was really more about the father who had 2 children. But in this particular case, right, it gets to this kind of questioning, which we see in the 3 of them in a way of form. 1 with a description, 2 then with a question. So it's this: doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And I mean, let me just ask you again: if you had 100 sheep, right, and you lose 1, will you leave 99 in an open country while you go look for the one, look for the 1 sheep? Will you leave 99 in the open country while you go look for the 1?
The human part of me says, you don't sacrifice. You have to weigh the risk, the calculations. Do you leave 99 thinking 5 of those could stray while you're gone looking for that 1, or do you keep the 99 because that's secure? So it's real hard. It had to be a hard decision, But the parable is right. It's teaching us to trust the 99 are okay and go get the 1. But I can't tell you that that's an easy decision. Because, I saw this program recently. I'll take a little side road, not a drift, but a side road.
Right.
And it's called For Mankind. And it's about the space program. And there was an astronaut that was actually outside of the ship and was drifting in space. And they got a command to come home and leave that astronaut, because I'd rather save 2 in a capsule than 1 that's out floating in space you may not can get to because she's drifting.
And they
went and got that 1.
They got it.
She says, "No, I'm captain of the
ship. Did you
I'm
just
going."
ruin the series for me?
I did. No, I didn't ruin it. No, trust me. There's way more than that.
There's more.
But,
okay.
But you watch For Mankind, but there's a lot of things about those team members not letting 1 go, and having to sometimes let go of command on Earth because they're in space and they're autonomous at that point. And even though they're getting orders, they're like, "No, I'm making that decision. I'm going after that 1, or I'm going to go to rescue these others, or I'm going to do what I have to do." And it's amazing to see the spirit they had for each other as astronauts. So I'm going to ruin that for you now. but it is. It's about the space program. So obviously there's astronauts. But no, it's a tough decision, but it just shows you how that applies to us on so many levels. Yes. So many levels. And we need to be willing to go after that 1. And I've told you this before when we talk about church and growing the church and being the church of tomorrow, that we can't sacrifice 1 soul. If we have made 1 decision that cost us 1 soul, it was wrong. So our thing is, just always thinking about, it's been a rough season, with COVID and people not here, and it's been rough because, people move on. But at the same time, we want that 1 that's out there. We don't want to damage 1. We don't want to cause 1 to stray. So it's not about going after the 1. Sometimes it's protecting the 1 from leaving the fold, keeping your fold together. So there should be a parable written about keeping it 100%. Let's just not go for that.
Gotcha. Wow. So even Jesus got it wrong. No,
no, Jesus didn't get it wrong. Not arguing with him. But I'm just saying, as the shepherd, what could he have done? Could he have built a fence? What could that shepherd have done to not lost that sheep? And what could that father done to not let that prodigal son go out and squander his wealth and live it up high? What love could he have offered him, and what wisdom and what advice and what guidance, and could he have held something back to ensure his longevity?
But even in the clearly, even in this case, I mean, there's a point in time where if you choose to, the door is always open. But even I'll tell you that, I mean, there is this eagerness to look down the horizon, to be ready, prepared to be able to receive whoever. If that son decides to come back, I'm ready to be able to receive. I'm ready to be able to willingness to bring back. I mean, it's a hard. I mean, I do find it interesting that in that section of Luke 15 is like the son asked for, I want all my inheritance, and it says the next sentence, and the father gave it to him, right? Like in many other cases, like, well, you will see me in court. Like there will be a whole bunch of other discussion, but there's a eagerness from the father to say, all right, this is what you want. Okay. Part of it, I think, is also positioned where in this, again, the lost coin, they didn't choose anything to be lost, right? Like the coin didn't go like, I really want to be lost. The sheep, certainly, from my understanding, very limited understanding of sheep, is that the sheep are not the smartest animals in the animal kingdom. But I think part of the way that Jesus is positioning the parable is to show the son to be as offensive as he can possibly be, right? Which I think it goes with your point. Like the idea is like, even if you wish that I was dead, even if you took the money, even if you went with process, even if you couldn't even sustain yourself, and you had to work with pigs, and you had to want to eat what the pigs ate, even then, I would still welcome you, I would still love you, I would still receive you. There's definitely a fork in the road, right? Like that where here's one set of values. I see a clear delineation from Christ to say, here's one set of values where you can think that you're better than other people and that other people are not welcome. And here's the other set of values where everybody's welcome, and everybody, regardless of their accent or their walk or their language or what they look, they're all welcome. And I'm clearly going to be in this side. And this explains why is it that I'm willing to welcome the sinners and why I'm willing to welcome the tax collectors. And whatever, keep filling in the blank with all kinds of different categories. That was just unheard of for then. There's a section there where it says, there is more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not repent. And it repeats, there's verse 7 has it, and then also, in the same day, I tell you, there's rejoicing in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. And then in the last one, the son comes, there's a party, and the older brother can connect with the reality of the party. Why do you think it's such an insistence from Christ to say, hey, our bias is for the sinner who comes back, as opposed to the 99 who are here, who are already where they need to be, but they do not repent? Why such a bias for the sinner to be able to come back and open the door for the sinner to come back?
Healing and restoration is so much more important. I look at that almost like salvation is so important. Our goal is to save souls for Christ. Him coming back home was restoration. It was making the family whole again. It was completing something that had been broken. And that is worth rejoicing. If we're all together and we're strong and we're not doing anything exciting, if we're not doing anything in our ministry, it's mundane. It's worth celebrating our wholeness and that we're still together and that we have stayed together. But like you say, we must always be growing. We must always be reaching out. Someone must be coming in that door for our ministry to be effective. And that father needed his restoration, but the celebration was because he's not lost, he's found. And that's just worth celebrating. If I celebrate everybody that's found, what do I do next? We have to be looking beyond that. We have to be looking for the lost sheep or the prodigal son, or, we have to be looking for the Shunammite woman. We have to be looking for those people who who are giving it all and need it all to come home.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. This conveying to the older brother, I want you to be a part. Right? There's almost like I want you to celebrate with me. I want you to have the same values that I have. I want you to be able to look at the world the same way I look at the world,
right,
so that we can celebrate together. This is a reason for rejoicing, and you're missing it. And I want you to be able to
yeah.
rejoice with me in this.
And you relate. I mean, I understand the joy of the story. I understand the point of the story, and I understand how important it is and how it relates to church and sinners coming to Christ. But you're a father. You have sons. Have they ever disagreed? And do you think they love each other with that
Never,
unconditional church
never.
love? Exactly. So you have a job to do. You have to do that because, and you have to go back and say, what did that father do that made those sons not see eye to eye or love each other or respect each other enough? How did that one, like you said, they really were both lost, but how did that one who resented the prodigal son coming home, what was the relationship like growing up? So you take your children and you make sure it never happens,
Yeah.
and then we won't have to go celebrate your lost sheep.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story is, how do you keep it together?
All right. So it's already half hour. So we appreciate you being here and sharing with us. Hopefully this was helpful to you as you grow in your journey, as you learn more about what God has to teach us. And again, our church is open to all, and that's part of our calling, what it means to be a Christian, and certainly what it means to be a Methodist. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. We're going to be starting a new series coming up this week called Journey to the Cross. We're going to be walking our way to the cross, and so we definitely would love to have you here in person if you feel comfortable, or online whenever is available to you. Our services are 8:30, and I want to remind you that on March 14, we're going to be moving our services to our sanctuary. The 8:30 service that has been taking place in this facility, in our worship center, is going to be moving to the sanctuary at 11:15. So we're going to be having the service at 11:15. So we're really excited. We're working really hard to be able to welcome you and have you be a part of what we do as a church. Also, this Saturday, we have a church-wide work day where we're going to be working to prepare and get ready and work to be able to welcome people back as we reopen the doors of our sanctuary. We're still going to be following social distancing, and we're going to make sure that we're wearing our masks and we are taking care of each other and showing love for each other. But we're glad to be able to return to our sanctuary, and we're excited. And Tracy's been working extremely hard to be able to be ready. Martin is out there right now working on letters for the building. Well, now I'm getting in trouble because Tim, help me out. Who else?
He's been working in our tech department. Oh, we've had just so many volunteers, and more coming Saturday. But
Yes.
the sanctuary's being freshened up, a few modifications to get to that modern worship idea where we can bring in guest musicians, guest singers. The organ is now on a platform, and you'll see some of our friends playing the organ, and it'll be moving across the stage, not while we're playing it. It's not like Organ Stop Pizza, but it will be moved, but it'll be moved to different positions to enhance worship and accompanying the choir in a different location. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
It looks amazing.
It's going to be awesome.
It looks amazing. So we are really excited about it. We definitely wanted you to be a part of it. We probably need to do like a little video as we lead forward closer to the 14th, so they can see.
We should.
But we're really excited about it. I know we've been blessed with leadership like Tracy, and we're looking forward to it. So we hope to see you March 14, 11:15. We're going to be worshiping together. Our Casa de Paz service is going to be here in the modern worship space at 10 in the morning, and our traditional service is going to be modern traditional service is going to be taking place at 11:15. So we're really excited, and we know that this is going to be a blessing to you, and we hope to see you soon. So God bless you. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you again.